Sabi. I've just forgotten his name.
Wow.
Yeah, but I even knew his name, man, in the text.
Yes.
Sandile. Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
And Sabi and Sabi, beautiful.
Mhm.
But welcome, guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
It's good to have you guys. If you can just maybe introduce yourselves. Who are you? You know, who are the people? What should the people know about you guys? And how did you guys meet?
Okay. So the name is Sandile Katite, and this year is my lovely wife. Masabata, Marifo Katite. Yeah.
All of the names.
Yeah, full name. So we're from Amazing Grace Church. We're a young couple. We've been married for almost 2 years now. I work in the banking industry. She works for a credit bureau in the info security space. And we are, young people who are for God, and we just love life and we love each other.
Yes. Definitely.
That's awesome. How'd you guys meet?
Yes.
The love story. What
It's my favorite part.
Ours is complicated and very loaded, me. But okay, I'll answer the how did I notice him? Yes. So we grew up together, went to the same school, went to the same church, lived in the same neighborhood. But then I left Johannesburg and I was invited back to the same church that we worship. And yeah, so we were doing Sabbath school, we sang, and then he was preaching. So that's when I noticed him. And then he'll tell you the rest.
So like she said, so we like from the same neighborhood. So we always knew each other, though we were never introduced and we never introduced each other, but we always knew each other from a distance. We were never in the same circles, we never actually even interacted, but we knew of each other. So if you were to ask us, like, when did we first meet, we can't tell you. We really can't tell you. But if you're asking, when did we first meet in the way that got us together, okay, that we can answer you. So it was at a wedding. So my cousin was getting married. This was now after Sabbath in the evening, right? And I was just chilling with the old friends of mine who were catching up. And she came up to us, right? And she's like, I'm the superintendent for, STASM at Bunting Road campus, and I'd like you to preach, on such and such a date. And I knew at the time I couldn't honor that request, but I was with my friends, so I was like, yeah, no, I'll do it, so I answered in the affirmative. And I knew I had no business doing that, it's just like the fragile male ego coming in there, but that's a story for another day. So I said yes, when I shouldn't have, So I was very cool, I want to be cool with it. So later on, I got her numbers, because I knew I had to call her and make things right, So I called her and I was like, look, I need to meet you, we need to discuss something. And she's like, discuss what? They're like, I can't tell you now, but as soon as we get there, I'll let you know what's happening, right?
Clever.
She was very hesitant, but ultimately she agreed. I was very persistent, right? So long story short, we get to a restaurant, and then I break the news to her, like, I can't do this, but I'm not going to inconvenience you. I have a cousin that I've already spoken to, and he's going to fill in for me, so that you don't have to look for another person, right? And that discussion went from discussing church matters to discussing life, to discussing love, to discussing loving life, to discussing love life. And here we are once again discussing love.
Nice.
That's how we met.
Awesome, I love it. It's so organic. And I think following up onto that, a question that a lot of young people ask you is, how do I know this is the one? How do I know this is it? And for you guys, what would you say made you decide this is it, man? This is my person. Let's settle down.
For me, it was at a point where I was praying for a partner, and I told God, we were all dating at the time as kids, so I was just tired of the dating game. So I went to God, told the man that, hey dude, now I'm tired of this dating business, ne? So if I do get married, can you, or rather, if you do want me to get married, bless me with a husband that will love me, that will honor you, that will fear you, you know. But beyond that, because I can't tell who's my husband, you know, I need the person that will come to me to say a few things, you know, within that week. So there was a timeline. So I told God, my husband needs to tell me that, you know what, I see you as my wife. And that was the first thing. That is the first thing I wanted to hear. And Sandile came and he said that. And I was like, okay, maybe the devil is listening, you know. So let's start journaling. So I stopped praying out loud and started journaling. And then I just put signs, you know, and I told God, okay, he needs to do this. He needs to say this, you know, allow him to wear a certain color, for instance. And that happened.
Wow.
But I still didn't believe up until I walked down the aisle. Yes. So, and he can testify to that.
Yeah. So with me is, I knew she was, right? So it was a feeling. But the thing with feelings is, you can't trust them much. You need something else to confirm, because it's just a sentiment. But what made me know and realize is when, you know, God showed me that she's the one. So when we met, I had just graduated. She was still completing her undergrad, right? So I had a contract as a student assistant at the varsity, right? But we were going towards the end of that contract, right? And then early in the following year, I was out of a job essentially, and she was between Johannesburg and Mpumalanga, Sandton. So for a while, it was somewhat of a long distance relationship, and I needed to call her. I had no airtime, right? So I would try to, you know, hustle airtime and try to call her, you know. So this one evening, I think I had like 10 rands or so, right? So I called her. So we spoke for like an hour, and I was like, wow, okay, this 10 rands, you know, got me to an hour. And then the next thing is 2 hours, and then the phone just cuts, right? And then when I check my airtime balance, I still have 10 rands. And I'm like, oh, okay. Then I called her again, right? And we spoke for another hour until she dozed off on me. And I was like, okay, this is strange. And then the following day, I did the same thing. And then I noticed that between 8 o'clock in the evening and 8 o'clock in the morning, I could call her for free every day, any day. This went on until the month I got a job.
Wow.
So that to me is God saying, look, I'm going to look out for you guys, right? So if she's far away from you in another province, I'm going to make sure that you guys have some sort of connection. And you guys can, you know, and I've asked friends and cousins, have you ever had this thing happen to you where you call someone for free? And no one else, you know, has ever had that, apart from myself. So at some point, her mother was like, why is Sandile abusing his dad's cell phone?
Yes.
You know, and then she's like, no, he's using his phone. And then she's like, but how much airtime is he loading? And then she says, no, he's calling for free. And her mother could just never believe.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a powerful testimony.
That's
God.
amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, we're already talking about it, but like, so do you guys really feel like God is really very much behind you guys getting together, you guys meeting, you guys reaching the point of, you know, walking down the aisle? Can you just speak to that a bit?
I believe he was. Like, I'm a huge fan of Stevie Wonder. And there's this song of his, and there's a line that goes, there's a ribbon in the sky for our love. You know, and I think that's like almost the story of our life. There's always been something that God does, that ribbon in the sky, you know, that makes sure that now I'm going to keep you guys together. I have a vested interest in you guys making it.
So, yeah. I think, as I had said before, that prayer, I was given that assurance that this is your husband, even though it took me quite a while to, you know, take it in. But God knew at the time that I had feared to fail, especially in marriage. Why? Because of what I've seen happen, and, you know, in our families, growing up without, you know, a father, you know, being from a divorced family. So it was a huge fear for me. So that's when I believed that, you know what, God is really invested in my happiness and our happiness. And he's just for us. And that is how I knew definitely that God has put a stamp of approval for the both of us to work out. And it's just amazing how God just took us from one place to another, you know, looking at the things that were happening at the time, you know. A few family members weren't approving of the relationship, you know. There was a lot of, I wouldn't call it adversity, but animosity, if I may say. But just God had a way of shielding it, you know. So eventually we had to understand that it's not about us, but about God, you know. And it's been a beautiful love story ever since. So, yeah.
Do you understand? So, sure, guys, what a journey.
Yes.
we're just like, sure. Well, it's amazing how, like you're saying, how God is just really knitting your journey together over all this time. So now we'd like to ask, so you've been married for, 5-6 years now?
Two.
We've been
2
together.
2 years. You've been married. You've been together for
8 years.
8 years. So now that you're married, so what could you say in terms of what's been like the most joyous aspect of being married, and what's been the biggest challenge?
They shall go first.
Oh, well, that's all. Okay. Should it be within marriage or?
Your journey.
Okay, so there's a few. There's not one particular event, but the biggest journey, the biggest joyful moment in our journey for me personally is when he got his job, his first job. Why that is very special to me is because through our relationship I was able to understand that what makes a man, for him particularly, not my expectation, but what makes a man is him being able to provide, you know, for his girlfriend, wife, fiance. And it was very important to him at that time for him to be able to do that. And there came a point where I prayed and I asked God, Lord, you know what, when June comes, Sandile needs to be working. And we're still girlfriend and boyfriend at the time. And okay, I'm big on timelines with God. So that's what I had prayed for. And when June started, he did get that call and he started working, which was the biggest, you know. And that is what really made me very, very happy, because I knew how important it is for him and not for me. And the second instance was, of course, my engagement. So I was waiting for that for a very long time. So, you know, you do have that assurance that, okay, this person is your husband, and God gives you that assurance, but you want to see it happen. So, yeah, the guy proposed, and I had told him that, dude, I don't want those beach proposals or going to a restaurant and all formal. I'm not no. So think out of the box, do something wild, you know. Should you propose? So, and I had showed him a ring I really, really loved, and okay, that used to, I don't know if it annoyed him but he never, I felt like he didn't notice that, you know.
I tried to act indifferent.
Yes.
Right? So she would show me the ring, and I didn't want to make her think that I'm going to go out of my way to get the ring, so that when I do, it becomes that much of a surprise.
So yeah, and then then the guy took me on a hot air balloon. I did not see that coming. Hey, I wanted the story now. But yeah, went on a hot air balloon, and then he started talking, and then all of a sudden, you know, he's thanking God, and you know, okay, the speeches and stuff like that. And then he's like, okay, now he's going to pray. And I'm like, okay, should I kneel down with you? And he's like, no, I'll kneel on my own. Until the guy's proposing. I'm glad that I'm still alive. I think I would have fallen off. Out of shock, you know. He did it up in the air, and the ring I've always wanted. Yes, so he got the ring I've always wanted. And on top of that, he had it engraved with the name he gave me. So that was the biggest moment, you know, of my life. And then the third one was being married. You know, the wedding day was bliss, I must say. I think I saw a side to him that I had never seen, especially the first part of our marriage, the traditional wedding. The guy was so excited. Guys, like, hey, wow. And yours?
No, it was like okay. Back to the hot air balloons. So the reason why I chose that, right? So as I went down on one knee, right? Symbolically, I told her that I wanted God to hear me that much clearer. You know, as I declare my love for her, and hence when we were that many, you know, meters or kilometers in the air, and then I declared my love to her. So that was, I think, the crux of that. The wedding was like, it's almost as if I had like an out of body experience, because I'm otherwise, you'd be amazed, I'm otherwise very reserved, very introverted. But on that day, I was like hollering at the top of my voice. I was singing.
That's amazing.
I have 2 left feet, but I was dancing. You know, it really was the most joyous moment. It's as if, you know, all the things that we went through before then, you know, culminated to this point, and you know, just the joy that overcomes you. It's indescribable.
That's amazing. Any challenges?
Challenges would be,
the saddest moment would be, okay, let me compose myself. It would be the passing of her mother.
yeah.
Because she was very close to her mother, and she was our advocate. You know, she stood up for us when there was like any person who didn't, you know, she was really in our corner at all times. She loved us. Yeah, when a person not just loves her daughter, like she loved us. And when she got sick, I picked her up in my arms, you know, placed her in the car. We rushed to hospital, and I was very hopeful that she was going to make it. But her mother told her otherwise, right? And she would tell me that I don't think she's going to make it. I'm like, nonsense. She's strong, because her mother, look, when you talk strong black women, her mother was that. Extremely strong. And I couldn't see a person that strong, you know, just withering. I just couldn't see that. I couldn't. And it happened on a Saturday on Sabbath. It happened. And she passed. And I knew we lost a huge ally in our relationship. You know, and it hit her very hard. You know, when I would see her cry, right? No matter how much I love her, I can't fill that void that her mother left. You know, so yes, I would embrace her. Yes, I would hug her. Yes, I would wipe her tears. Yes, I would pray with her. But I know that's not enough. You know, only God can fill that void. So the helplessness that I felt, you know, was quite immense. So for me, that was, you know, the saddest part of our relationship.
Yeah, but like, you know, just beyond that, but you know, being married, you know, you're in this relationship for X amount of years and you're married 2 years. Is there a shift? Is there a change? Did he change? Did she change? Did you surprise each other?
Sandile is still the same Sandile. My husband is, he didn't change much. But the role will definitely change, because now you're a husband and I'm now a wife, you know, and now you have to cook. And I don't like repeating meals. So, cooking every day. Now you have a house that you have to clean, And I don't think I'm OCD, but I like a clean house, you know. And he's just easygoing, so I'm very uptight in a way. So it did change a bit, I will say, because now we're living together. I don't know his habits. He didn't know my habits, good and bad. And he was just too chilled, man, for my liking. Not that he changed, but he was just, you know, the chilled type of guy, you know. And yeah, but I guess we learned a lot because I think it was a culture shock for me, and I guess it was also culture shock for him. And there came a point where he had said, you know what, Sabi, I don't know how it is to be a husband, you know. And I think that's very deep for a man to say that, to be able to say, I don't know what to do, you know, I don't know how to make you happy, I just don't know, you know. And there came a point where I was also frustrated at some point, and I'd give him that frustration, give him that poison. And there was a point where he said, I think it's best if you were to tell God, you know, you don't have to give me that poison. I was a bit offended, but then I took that challenge. And I started journaling, and I told God, you know, God, something is like this, is like that. You know, and just dishing out everything about my unhappiness at the time. And the funny thing is that God is invested in relationships. God is invested in having us being happy in our marriages. And God came through for me, you know. I wouldn't say that he changed anything in him, but he changed me and my heart, you know. And after that point, you know, everything changed. I saw marriage in a different light. I saw my husband in a different light, you know. And I'm not so finicky anymore, you know, about curtains and having a sock day and stuff. So yeah.
See, God loves love.
Yes.
Right? And when God sees two people who love each other, right, he can't help but immerse himself in that because he loves love. So when we were, you know, still dating, I was always able to make her happy, make her smile, make her laugh. And within the first year of our marriage, somehow I lost that power. You know, I couldn't make her laugh as loudly, you know, she didn't smile as brightly. And I had to tell God and her, I did the boyfriend thing very well. You know, but the husband thing, I seem to be struggling a bit. But God just knows how to fix things. The thing about marriage is, when we were dating, right, I was able to put my best foot forward at all times. She didn't see the prep work. You know, she only saw me when I was in action, right? So I always sent my best representative in every way. So now that we're married, right? Now she can see all the prep work that I do, right? And then maybe, just maybe she's like, oh, so you're not that great after all. So you have to do A, B, C, you know, for you to get, oh, you know, so I felt naked. You know, I felt exposed. I felt maybe I'm a fraud and I've just been exposed, right? But she loved me despite the faults, because the faults were now there for her to see, you know. But she loved me despite that. So I don't need now my representative, you know. He can move over, you know. She loves me, faults and all. And I think that's the best thing about marriage, because there is no way you're gonna hide your true self, you know, and your shortcomings. She's gonna see them, as I see hers. But we love each other regardless.
It's powerful. I think, I mean, I've heard it said so often that marriage is essentially intimacy, intimacy. So she's so into you,
Yes.
and you see into her, and it's like saying, okay, like you said, you felt naked. And that's essentially what they say marriage is about, right? Accepting this person naked as they are, with all their issues and all of that. So thank you for saying that. I think that's really profound. Our next question to you is, so you guys are Christian, and you're also African. I'm assuming you're from different cultures.
We are.
Yeah.
Oh, we are.
Okay. Maybe if you can share which cultures you're from and whether that impacts your relationship, whether that your culture is a factor in your relationship.
Okay. So Sabi and I do come from different tribes, if you will. So my great-great-great-grandfather came from Swaziland, and so we identify with the Swati tribe. Her family comes from the Bapedi people, right? But the thing with this is, I don't speak Swati, neither does she speak Sepedi. My father doesn't speak Swati, neither does her father speak Sepedi. I think both our fathers can speak that language, but it's not their mother tongue. So culture doesn't play, as central a role, because culture is immersed in the language. If you don't speak that language, then you're not in tune with that culture, right? But there are certain norms, So, okay, let me back it up a bit. So, I knew, okay, this woman, I want to engage this woman, right? But we couldn't have the whole Tinseltown thing where mom, dad, surprise, I'm engaged. You just can't have that, right? So I needed a way to preserve the surprise and yet respect the family, right? Because we needed to understand that the practice of lobola is still entrenched, right, in our families, and that has to be respected, and it has to be given its due respect, right? So lobola is actually the proper engagement, right? That's like officially, culturally. So the whole you going down on one knee thing is seen as Western, right? But I wanted that for her. So I had to somehow merge the two worlds together. So I called her grandmother, because her grandmother is another black woman, strong, who was also on our side. I was like, I have this dilemma, but I think I need to approach her father to respectfully ask for a hand in marriage and make plain my plans to engage her, and then ask for his blessing, right? So I couldn't call her father. Culturally, I can't do that. I can't just call him up. So I went via the grandmother. And the grandmother was like, I'll relay the message to her father. If he agrees, then you can come over, and then, So come that day, I asked my older brothers to accompany me, because I didn't want it to look as if I just woke up and be like, okay, So my 3 older brothers, by brothers I mean like cousins as well. It's in the African sense, we're all brothers. So they accompanied me there, and we got there and we asked for a hand in marriage, and her father gave us the blessing. And then I asked the family not to tell her that I had come, and not to tell her that I have this surprise engagement.
But before that, tell them how much of a challenge that was, because it's not the norm.
It wasn't the norm. So her father being a father, he was a bit hard. He did make it plain that he doesn't understand this, but he does see that I'm passionate about it. That's not how he would have had things happen, but he does give us his blessing, And true to form, the family kept this from her until I was able to pull off the engagement, and give her that surprise that I always wanted to give her. So.
That's so interesting, because I find more and more young people, that's the challenge we face, because we need to respect our parents, and also respect our parents and understand from them what is it that they're willing to accept, because I think in this day and age most parents are, I think, more open to, okay, we see we want to do this, but this needs to happen.
Yes.
So I think there's a dance that happens now
Correct.
culturally because there are things that we have to respect as
Yes,
children because
yes.
we need our parents' blessings, you know. And you know, just finally, you know, the question then is, how do you think our interrogation of our culture sometimes can be a bit? Do you think we interrogate it properly, or do you think that sometimes we can be just a bit spoiled and selfish? You know, I want the engagement, so I don't care what mom and dad think. I want my ring, you know. Or I mean, there's a huge question right now these days. So this lobola thing. So what's the exact aim? Does there need to be so much exchanging of? Does it need to cost X amount? Does it have to be so many cars? And do we need the white wedding? And possibly all, you know, it's so literally every couple now that we come, it's a conversation. You know, it's okay. What do we do?
I think you should take the
Um,
to answer this one.
Yeah. So I think it's multicultural. So it's very layered,
Yeah.
right? There are elements of culture that are very beautiful, very functional, and how I so wish we could preserve those. But sometimes they just, you know, we just drift away from that. Not necessarily because of bad intentions, but just becoming more modern. But I feel those ones really we really ought to preserve. Lobola is one of them, because the whole idea is we're not just combining two people, we're combining families together. And we want these families to know each other and to have a level of camaraderie, you know, because we're merging two families together. So I think that's a very beautiful thing, and we should never lose that. There are other elements of culture that I think, you know, subjectively, we can revise. But by and large, I'm an advocate for culture, even though I'm not the most cultural person you'll find, you know, but I do acknowledge that at least. And then, so because of this, so we insist on ilobol, right? Because it's African, right? And then some parents insist on their daughters wearing a white gown, right? You find mothers be like, my daughter is not going to leave my house if she's not going to wear a white gown, right? But before then, we were insisting on lobola. So now we're insisting on this Western culture, but then again, we're insisting on this African culture. So which is it? You know, so we sort of merge, and hence I started by saying it's cross-cultural, multicultural, but it's a beautiful thing nonetheless. As far as exchanging gifts, we never did that.
Okay.
We didn't. And there are people who feel to this day that we are not married because we didn't do that.
Okay.
Right? So like, we had a traditional wedding. That doesn't count. It doesn't count. It doesn't count. Like, look, our parents were there, our families were there, you know, we were dressed in traditional garb. Right? No, that doesn't count. So to them, we're as good as unmarried, you know, to some people. But we're very much married. Very much. And those can be very expensive, you know. So the way we did like our planning was, I wanted the venue weddings, the so-called white weddings, for her, right? But also, maybe for me selfishly, because I wanted to show that I can do for her, because there's symbolism there. I needed to symbolically tell everyone that, look, she is my wife and I'm taking care of her, and this should let you know that from this day on I can handle things if I can pull this off.
Yes.
Right? But those can be very expensive, like very expensive. You may need to budget like $500,000 for those. So the way we went about it is, we're going to have our traditional wedding, and we're going to have our venue wedding, white wedding. So I say white, but we didn't go, like, there was no white gown. Right?
I did not wear a white gown.
She didn't want to, so like, we're not having that. So it was a venue wedding with strong African elements. You know, if only we came with our...
Yes, or alcohol.
Okay. So the traditional wedding, right? That was it's easier on the pocket, and you can invite as many people as possible. So we wanted the church to be involved, wanted our friends to be involved. We both come from very large families, people went to school with, as far as primary school were there. So we wanted it to be as big as possible and have people, enjoy the day with us and celebrate with us. And then for the venue, we limited the number. Right? We limited the number, but we still had, that occasion. So that was our way of, balancing the economics of this whole thing.
And what's interesting about the second wedding is that my parents were a bit taken aback with the fact that I don't want a white gown, because it was a big thing,
It was.
And yeah, we both had a discussion with them and told them, guys, we will have this wedding and Sabi will not wear a white gown, and it's got nothing to do with purity or whatever else that has been lost somewhere along the line. So I didn't wear a white gown, but I had a wedding. So I had a veil, all that shebang, I was a beautiful bride, but it just wasn't white. Yeah, we kept it very, very African.
Why didn't you want? What was particular about the white gown that you felt like?
We wanted the beauty of a venue wedding. We wanted the glamour, if you will, right? But we didn't necessarily want it to have it like star white, if that makes sense. So we infused a lot of African elements in there. Because I once made a comment to her to say, why is it that when we have so-called traditional weddings, we have them in the township or township hall, right? And then when we're having the white weddings, we need to find a venue somewhere in Pretoria or Mulder's Drift, somewhere expensive. Is it possible to swap maybe? Can you have the white gown in the township and have traditional wear at the venue? Is that possible, or do we devalue the traditional weddings? Like, okay, if you're going to wear the sort of pattern, then rather go to the township, and if you're going to wear a tux, then go to somewhere expensive. So we didn't want the feel of your white wedding. So we wanted it to be African. So it's at a venue, yes, but it's still African. So we really wanted to maintain that. So that's what we did. I think to some level we made it work. Yeah. And we could not have had it any other way.
Yeah, I think it's such a powerful like perception shift, because like it's what are you honoring, and by what you invest in, it shows what's more important to you. And I think somehow we've conflated that with I don't know, somehow God and Christianity and Christ, somehow we speak in our minds, it doesn't combine with being African and celebrating that, you know. So which is, I don't know if you guys have any final comments on that. Do you have any final question? But yeah, just final comments on that. I think we're done already.
I would say we need to be very proud of our Africanness and never shy away from it. That does not necessarily imply that we ought to be enslaved to what was defined as culture back then. We can still be modern, but still claim to our African identity and be proud of it.
My last comments would be, marriage is beautiful. And there's a piece I wrote, I think it was on Facebook, where I said, marriage is an institution created by God, but it's entered into by imperfect human beings, people that who are sinful by nature. And because of that, because Sabi and Sandile are entering into marriage with a whole lot of baggage and experiences that they have been through, you come into marriage and you destroy each other based on our experiences. But that is not what God wants for us. And during this whole time, during the transition from being a girlfriend to a wife, that is what I had realized, to say God is really invested in showing and proving to others that, what, in as much as I've created this and it is entered into by imperfect human beings, it still can be a perfect marriage, So having that perfect marriage cannot happen without God. And
Yeah.
that's the honest truth. I had to go through my own experience, you know. I had to wrestle with my God. I had to deal with my own insecurities and baggage and all of that in order for me to understand that actually this is not about us, it's about God. That's the first thing. The second thing is that in order for you to be happy in marriage, you'll have to die to self. So when Paul says we should die daily, that is what needs to happen in marriage. Otherwise, you will not survive. And another powerful thing that I've learned is that in as much as people would preach on salvation, in as much as people would preach on forgiveness and grace, that made sense when I got married.
That point. Yeah.
So salvation, forgiveness, grace made sense when we got married, to say, actually, God has been so patient with me, you know. I've sinned so much against God, knowingly and unknowingly, and He forgives me. So if He can do that for me, what more my husband, you know? So yeah, that's marriage.